We were here with Vassiliki Katrivanou, which is a Greek MP of Syriza in the Greek Parliament.
So migration and refugee policies, it's major in Greece, but in the whole Europe. And the previous government had the main policy around migration was repulsion of the flows, was pushbacks, was massive arrests and detention camps. This was the way they were thinking they can really deal with the migration issue. But this created a dead end because people were detained and then freed and then detained back, and there were no policies around legalization or free movement or anything. So when we came 5 months ago, the first thing we did is we created a ministry on ministry on immigration, okay? And we separate immigration from the police. It isn't that the police will handle the immigrants, the refugees, or the policy around. And our main perception was that it's necessary to create safe passage of people, second, to have reception, to create reception centers where with refugees, because our main flow in the moment is refugees, Syrian refugees. 80% is Syrian refugees. Okay, so to create reception centers for them, as we have to, according to the international law, we have to receive refugees and support them, and also to create a safe and a quick asylum process for them to apply for asylum if they want to. Now, what happened are the following things. First of all, we have all this financial pressure generally in Greece, as you know, the struggling. Second, our previous government in October had to apply to the EU for more funding around issues of immigration, and they did not. So we stayed with a gap of money, okay? So we couldn't create the reception centers that we wanted to because we had no money, basically. So what we did is we went back to the EU and we asked for funding, saying that they have to support us to create these centers, and they have to support us in many ways. First, money, funding. Second, to help us relocate people, share the responsibility, because all these flows wanted to go to Europe, and we had to help them relocate, reconnect with their families, move as they needed to. And also, whoever is saved in the sea, in the Mediterranean Sea, here or in Italy or in the entrance country, that they are supported. The rescue process is supported, and also the refugees will be shared in Europe next to it, and not all come to the entrance country where people don't have, where there is no a support structure to receive them. And that we're gonna close the detention centers as people should not be detained. Only the ones that the detention is allowed only in 2 cases for us. The moment somebody enters, so that they are detained for a very short time, like 1 week or 2, so they can see, there's the screening and who you are and what's your need and where you come from, you know, and then they have to go to be free and to go to reception center or be helped to do what they need to do. The second time, if there is a short period where people are going to return back. We said we're gonna close the detention centers here, but 4,500 people around were detained. The moment we said that, we announced this policy, we received 2 letters from EU telling us that if we close the detention center, we have to return the money all the money that we received from the EU for these detention centers. Greece has no money, has no option to do that. So from that moment, there is a struggle to try to find options, what you can do about the situation. One thought was to say, okay, we're going to keep the detention centers open, but just for the short period of entrance, as I told you, when people are coming in, and it needs to be like a screening and categorization and stuff like that. EU does not accept that either. They say we want the detention centers to be either you return us the money or you keep it as it is for detention. We don't accept that you transform it to first reception centers or you transform them to the open centers. That's why we haven't been able to do what we wanted to do, because we don't have the money to give it back at this point at all. And we don't have the money also because of the financial gap that I told you, which is a responsibility of the previous government. We don't have the money also to keep them, like to keep the food, to keep the psychologists, to keep the doctors, to keep everybody who is working in it. So it's a horrible situation that something should be done. What we're doing now is we're trying to figure out a way to handle it towards the direction of closing it, because that's our mentality and policy around immigration. And we are pressuring the EU to give us the funding that has promised, and extra funding that has promised, and to help us with sharing the responsibility of refugees here. Personally, I've been going to detention centers from the beginning that they were creating, and now I have been visiting islands, and what I can tell you is, because people know that they will not be detained for long, it's not such a, first of all, detention centers are not as crowded, and there's no such a hopelessness in people's eyes. Nevertheless, especially in the first reception centers, because people know they're going to be kept a little bit in the entrance and then go out. Nevertheless, it's something that we should definitely close, and I'm ashamed that we haven't done it. I mean, whatever are the reasons and the inability to return the money and whatever, I'm ashamed that we haven't done it, and I think people in Europe should know more about the situation, and there should be a broader mobilization in all levels, movement level, but also institutional level, about this, meaning we have to deal differently than being asked to return the money or just have the detention centers open, The situation is really, really difficult, and because we receive constantly such a flow of people that really don't want to stay in Greece. The majority are refugees. They want to go. They don't want to apply for asylum in Greece because they don't want to be here. They don't see their future here. They have families, or they want to find job in other places. So what they do is they continue in illegal ways, in dangerous ways, and that's a responsibility for the whole Europe. Because it's a hypocrisy on the one hand to talk about the refugees and the need for support and the stop of wars and stuff like that, but when people come to choose to close your border or to choose not to share the responsibility, as we saw in all the latest meetings of the EU around issues of immigration, that it's a hypocrisy to say, yes, solidarity, but not for me, not for my country. I won't receive, I won't help, and I'll close the borders. And I think the bottom line of this question is, what do you put first? Do you put the so-called borders or security, or you put the people's life? Because underneath of closed borders is death. You can have 30 days to return, but you take a paper. Police is not supposed to take you back to the detention center. What happened is that there are people who are supposed to go back to be returned, are the ones that stay in the detention centers at this point, not refugees for sure. And they stay the latest they stay, it's 6 months at this point in the detention center. Either for reasons of returning or for reasons of that there's a connection with pinnacle, like illegal acts, as we say, for security reasons. I still think that 6 months is a long time. And there should be alternative measures, even for the people that they are supposed to go back. That means that they show up in the police station once a month, and after a certain time they will, go back. I'm totally against myself, and as I told you, I have personal ethical issue around it, that we still keep the detention center, even for the period of 6 months, even in much better conditions, because the detention centers are open now for social, doctors, social clinics, and NGOs that go in and help in many ways, and people solidarity groups for immigrants, but that's not what we want for people to be detained. Now, during this time, under all this financial struggle that we had, we couldn't materialize the program that we wanted for Greece, that was focused on the social system, on health, on education, on the intervention on the humanitarian crisis. And nevertheless, we tried to do many stuff, such as bills that concern intervention to the humanitarian crisis, that will provide food, shelter, and electricity for 300,000 people. Secondly, the ability that people can pay payments, 100 payments, as we call, for taxation, where people could really afford to make payments and to help them. It was a huge relief that they could deal with the taxation that was enormous, and just nobody was paying. So it wasn't good for people, it wasn't good for the economy, because the taxation was not coming back. Last week we opened ERT, we opened the public TV. We passed laws for the prisons, where the people that are sick or they're drug addicts, or they should go to treatment, or the sick people could have the opportunity to have support or go home. They're like whatever could really support people in the situation, in the moment, which is so challenging for the society, and also support the democratization of Greece. Last week we passed Ithagenia. We haven't completely passed Ithagenia, it's a Greek word, I'm so sorry. Citizenship for second generation of kids, which will continue next week, hopefully, and it will finish the process. And it's for the first 2 years we had no law for citizenship for kids of second generation. The law was frozen. Now kids that were born in Greece and they're subscribed in the first year of the elementary school can receive citizenship, with a huge thing. And it's ready the law for civil union for gay people. Things that really gave us a breath as a society, socially, to really feel that it's not just repulsion and suppression and punishment. And many people said, oh my God, if something happened to Syriza, I can't imagine that the old regime, the old guys will come back, the old corrupted guys, the same repulsion, the same fascist policy, basically. And people are saying, please, even if yes comes first, let Tsipras not get resigned. We really cannot afford that the whole corrupted previous political stage will be again ruling Greece. I think we cannot go back to that point.